गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। आचार्यत्रय मध्यमाम् अस्मद्गुरुपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। नमः शिवानन्दाय गुरुवे सच्चिदानन्दमूर्तये निष्प्रपञ्चाय शान्ताय निरालम्बाय तेजसे त्वं हि विष्णुर्विरिञ्चिस्त्वं त्वं च देवो महेश्वरः त्वं च विशक्तिरूपोऽसि निर्गुणस्त्वं सनातनः आनन्दमानन्दकरं प्रसन्नं ज्ञानस्वरूपं निजबोधयुक्तं योगीन्द्रमेढ्यं भवरोगवैद्यं श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि श्रीमद्गुरुं नित्यमहं नमामि। Radiant immortal Atman, beloved and blessed children of the Divine, devotees, disciples and followers of Gurudev Sri Swami Chidanandaji Maharaj, we were considering Gurudev's highest sadhana yesterday, supreme sadhana, सहनशीलता, सहिष्णुता, अपमान को भी सहन करो। और जिस तरह से गुरु महाराज एकादश स्कंद में कृष्ण उद्धव समाज के बीच जैसा अवंती ब्राह्मण का जो प्रसंग है उसको बार बार दोहराते थे, कहते थे ऐसा होना चाहिए, आदर्श हमारा ऐसा होना चाहिए। क्योंकि आखिर में वेदांत का सिद्धांत के दृष्टि से हो, अद्वैत केवल अद्वैत वेदांत का सिद्धांत का दृष्टि से हो, या द्वैतवाद के सिद्धांत के दृष्टि से हो, अपने आप ये मिटाने के बाद ही हम उस तत्व की अनुभूति प्राप्त कर सकते हैं। जब तक अहम रहेगा तब तक वो परात्पर तत्व हमेशा अप्राप्त ही रहेगा। ऐसा अपना अपना भाषा में, द्वैत की भाषा में, भक्ति की भाषा में और अद्वैत की भाषा में, वेदांत की भाषा, तो बात तो एक ही है। और हमारे परम पूजनीय, परम आदरणीय, श्रद्धेय ये उपाध्यक्ष श्री श्री स्वामी माधवानंद महाराज, गुरु महाराज श्री माधवानंद महाराज, ये बात को वो बार बार एक श्लोक बता करके कहते थे व्यास भगवान के। दो शब्द है जो बंधन को और मोक्ष को संज्ञित करता है। वो क्या है? There are two words that indicate liberation and indicate bondage. And shall I tell you the quintessence of the actual Vedantic situation, the fix in which the Jivatma finds itself. What is it? Aham and Mama, they indicate bondage, they indicate samsara, they indicate tapatraya, they indicate all the sufferings of the individual soul. They are all brought about by these two factors that have caught hold of the individual soul, I and mine. And naham, na mama, they indicate liberation. Where there is absolutely absence of separatist ego sense, where there is no desire to shore it up and keep it, support it, and where there is no feeling of this is mine, then he said, you are already liberated. So, not I and not mine. There is no such thing like ego. Not I. You don't assert yourself. And there is no sense of attachment to anything as mine. There is liberation. Madhavan Swamiji is very fond of constantly saying this. Two words indicate bondage, two words indicate liberation, and they are aham and mama indicate bondage, and naham, na mama indicate liberation. All of which goes to show that this individual ego is the problem that needs solution. And the solution is dissolution of this individual ego. There is no other solution. It has to go. Until it goes, and so we said, when shall I be free? When I shall cease to be. Then shall I be free when I shall cease to be. And this is said more than merely a psychological or an ethical sense of this statement. Psychologically, we know that the individual is an individual because he has got an individuality. Otherwise, individual will be only like a lakir drawn on a water surface with a stick. तुरंत ही मिट जाएगा. Or psychologically, unless the individual feels the sense of I, he cannot survive. he will not survive. I feel hungry, I want food. If he feels hungry and yet does nothing to take food, he will starve and die. So survival necessitates the presence or the existence of a separate individualistic awareness of oneself as a being apart from others, and one has to look after oneself. So they say psychologically the survival drive manifests itself as the separatist ego consciousness. So this is only an explaining why it is there, why the necessity of it is there for survival. It is a basic first the manifestation of consciousness. First you are aware that I am I. Okay? After deep sleep when you wake up, the first awareness is I am awake. You may not say so, but that is the anatomy of the state of consciousness at that moment of waking. See? You know I am awake. See? I have woken from sleep. You know it. And that therefore is the basic state of the mind, I. And the ethical aspects of it come into play in accordance with the guna with which this I associates itself or allows itself to be dominated by. If the I associates itself with sattva or is dominated by sattva, that I becomes a very, very valuable asset to society, to the individual, and to all aspects of vyavahara of the individual. All aspects of the vyavahara of the individual, they result in good to others, result in happiness, result in harmony, result in unity, result in everything that is positive, constructive, good, beautiful, auspicious, blessed. If the ego allows itself to be dominated by Rajoguna, it becomes a center of agitation, disturbance, causing a lot of disturbance, causing agitation, disharmony, and keeps the individual also in a state of restlessness. Chain nahi hai, hamesha bechain rehta hai, to unko shanti nahi hai. He has no peace, and he cannot give peace to others also. He is in a state of so, when the ego is allowed to be dominated and to be dictated and governed and driven, directed by Rajoguna, Rajasic, or when that person becomes a center of restlessness. But if it is channelized, if there is a basis of sattva and it is channelized in the direction directed by sattva, this rajasic active principle becomes productive of something that is positive, beneficial and good. Gurudev's activities were like that. There was a rajas which communicated to others. He himself did not do much activity, but he was able to keep 20, 30, 40 people active even for 12 hours a day. With 2 or 3 sentences he gave enough burden of work to people to keep them busy that day and next day and whole week also. So he knew that is just like sun rises, it does not do anything afterwards. See, it comes over the mountain, it rises, it does not do anything afterwards. Neither does it shout nor give any command nor does, no, it's not like a sergeant on the parade ground. But the moment, the very fact of its rising makes the whole world move into activity. Everyone starts acting, the whole world is plunged into activity, dynamism. So that is the way in which the divine personalities work. But in those who have not attained to that God consciousness or divine consciousness, rajas becomes a disturbing factor, but it becomes redeemed if it has got a basis of sattva and rajas is channeled. Otherwise, if the basis of rajas is rajas itself, or worse still, if it is tamas, that person, wherever that person goes, he starts some unrest. he does not allow others to be in peace, he is not in peace, and everywhere there is always. And when he comes, people become tense. When he goes, people have a sigh of relief. That is the Rajasic temperament. But if the ego principle becomes associated with Tamoguna, then you have a real problem both for the individual, his family, his immediate neighborhood, society, nation, for the whole world. Because when that ego asserts itself as greed, as anger, as dominating aggressiveness and destructiveness and harassment to others, tormenting others, hinsatmak to others. And all the asuras had this quality, Ravana and anyone you can say, their egos were completely dominated by Tamoguna, lethargy and sleep, as well as anger and passion and greed and hatred and everything. And wherever they went, they brought about a state of unhappiness, a state of chaos, a state of... so if you read the Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, then you will understand. So ego by itself is amoral. Ego by itself is neutral. Ego is by itself is neither good nor bad. It is there. And therefore upon the ethical plane, ego becomes a liability if it is associated with too much of tamas. Ego becomes a nuisance and a disturbance. It may not be a productive of serious destruction and disruption and unhappiness and other things, but it becomes a source of disturbance. But if it is associated with sattva, it becomes productive of much good, much good. All the rishis, all the saints, all the sages, all the good people, they had ego but associated with sattva. So their whole life was a continuous stream of benefit to others, good to others, solace to those who are afflicted, and peace where there was disruption and quarrel. See? And wherever they went, they brought about shanti, shanti, shanti. See? And even when they were confronted by violent tamoguna based rajas, even when the sattva was complete, immediately you know the famous story of Jagai and Madai, two ruffians, drunkards, and then Mahaprabhu approached them and embraced them, finished. Those two people who were in a violent mood and actually were out to hurt and beat and thrash and destroy, they were reduced to tears. They fell at his feet and begged forgiveness, and then began to cry. All their misdeeds came before their mind's eye, and then took hold of Mahaprabhu's feet and said, please redeem us, please save us, please forgive us, please lie there. So that transferred. Why? Because there is absolute sattva on one part. So the ethical implication of ego comes in according to the guna. But now, why yoga, the science of yoga? Why Vedanta, Siddhanta steps in and completely, cautions the jignasu, cautions the mukshu, cautions the sadhak against this ahankara is quite apart from its psychological or ethical implication. From a metaphysical point of view, aham, the sense of aham itself, is the separation between Paramatma and Jivatma. The I consciousness itself is the main reason for you are being deprived from the ever-present joy and peace, the bliss of the cosmic principle that is the very center of your being. किस कारण से, किस वजह से आप वो आनंद सर्वत्र विराजमान अंदर बाह्य ओतप्रोत जो आनंद और शांति परमार्थ तत्व के है, तो उसके अनुभव से आप कैसे वंचित हैं, किस वजह से वंचित है, तो उसका एक ही सवाल का जवाब यह है, तुम्हारे अपने अहम से वंचित रहने के कारण। क्यों? दर्शन वेदांत सिद्धांत ये अहंकृति की विश्लेषण करके वो उसका स्वरूप का वर्णन किया है। ये अहंकृति अंतःकरण में उत्पन्न एक ऐसा तत्व है जिसका उत्पत्ति देहाध्यास से है। जो शुद्ध चैतन्य कॉन्शियसनेस जो है वो अपना स्वरूप के साथ एक नहीं बनते हुए स्वरूप से विमुख होकर के, स्वरूप से अलग होकर के केवल मात्र तात्कालिक उपाधियों के साथ ये अपनत्व को, एक अध्यास को, आइडेंटिफिकेशन को बना दिया है। उसके वजह से ये अहंकृति उत्पन्न हुआ है। What is the anatomy of the genesis of this I sense? See, I sense also is an awareness. It is also basically a state of awareness, but a erroneous awareness. Awareness which by its very nature is false, by its very nature is an error. It's an aberration, as Krishna sometimes like to call it aberration. So, the very nature of this ahankriti is an awareness that has gone off at a tangent, because our real awareness is what is known as nitya nirupadhika. There is no upadhi in our real awareness. There is only awareness of being, and awareness of being is undiluted pure bliss. Just awareness of being is undiluted pure bliss. But the moment it moves away from this state of being pure awareness of being, and that awareness takes on the shape of Swarup of I am is bliss. I am this, I am that, finish. There starts, see, the vitiation of उसमें विषमता, मैं ये हूँ वो हूँ, जब अपने आप का स्वयं जो स्वतंत्र निज स्वरूप है, तो उस स्थिति से वो विचलित होकर के जब अपने आप को तो उसके बाहर की अन्य वस्तुओं के साथ एक बन करके मैं ऐसा हूँ वैसा हूँ, ये हूँ वो हूँ, इधर हूँ उधर हूँ, ऐसा उसके अंदर एक गौण एक परिस्थिति आ जाती है। वो विषमता ही अहंकृति के उत्पत्ति के लिए कारण। I am is the consciousness of God, Parabrahman, Ekoham. That's what Vedanta says. And then Bhavishyam, let me enjoy the sport by becoming many. So Ekoham is the I am of Brahman. There is no modification. It is attributeless, and there is no limitation. It is transcendental. There is therefore peace and joy. But the moment it moves away from this pure I am consciousness and feels I am so and so, but there it descends into darkness. There the knowledge is completely turned topsy-turvy. They call it in Vedantic terminology viparita jnana. वो भी ज्ञान है. That is also an awareness, but awareness turned upside down. Therefore, basically an error, because it is the outcome of having moved away from your center, real center, the self, and then identifying itself. And how it happens, it does not identify itself stage by stage with this and that. The sum totality, the moment you bring a colored object near to a absolutely 100% transparent, crystal clear crystal ball, the moment you bring The moment it comes within its proximity, the entire crystal becomes filled with that color. You see as though it's a rose, you hold a colored cloth, the whole crystal becomes either violet or green or blue or red or pink, whatever the color that you bring into its proximity. In the same way, the metaphysics of the ego is the pure awareness when it becomes involved in a state of identification with limiting factors that have come into its proximity. We shall not go into the question why they come into its proximity or what. That is a thing which you have to experience, you cannot understand. Because we can ask the same question, why Maya came into proximity with Brahman? Why should Mool Prakriti Shiva Shaktya Yuktam Yadi Bhavati? Or why should, when Brahman was quite alright, self-sufficient, Sarvasantra, Swatantra, Paripurna, in his own maja, why he allowed a second factor to come into his proximity? And when Brahman reflected through Maya becomes the Anantakoti Brahmandas, including the individual Jivakotis and all that. So why unnecessary this multiplication and complication? That question has to be experienced and cannot be understood. So when Brahman himself allowed himself to be affected by, so the proximity of upadhis, proximity of the limiting adjuncts of the five karmendriyas and pancha pranas and five jnanendriyas and manobuddha ahankara chitta ityadi give rise to a limited, separate aham or I consciousness closely bound up with one name and one form. And so a sense of difference from everyone else, sense of separation from everyone results. The ultimate result is that you become an island, you become a separate individual, different from everyone else, and therefore comes this vyavaharik situation. See, having to talk with others and coming into clash and conflict with so many different egos. And this erroneous consciousness is the main barrier to be overcome or set aside. It is avarana and it is ajnana, it is avidya, it is a wall between the jivatma and paramatma. And the whole of spiritual sadhana, whether it is jnana yoga or bhakti yoga or raja yoga, the whole of spiritual sadhana and is the effacement of this ego. So you can understand now the value and the place of Nishkamya Karma Yoga in the context of this situation upon the metaphysical side of spiritual life. It valuable preparation for your higher sadhanas of transcending the ego or effacing the ego or eradicating the ego either through Ashtanga Yoga or through Navamida Bhakti or through Shravana Manana Nididhyasana Vitara Viveka and all that. Whatever you do, if you already initiate this process in the field of Vyavahara by giving up self, by giving up selfishness, by giving up desires and giving up Kartrutva Abhimana and begin to plunge into pure, selfless, desireless, egoless paropakara, seva, mother and father, service of mother and father, service of the elders, service of society, service of the poor, service of the suffering, service of the sick, service of the nation. The husband effaces the ego and serving his parivar. See, is willing to undergo any trouble, even if he is running temperature, goes to the office or clinic or workshop or college and works. Why? Because he desires to, provided it is not completely blinded by attachment and infatuated, deluded attachment, but he does it in Nishkam. Wife, children, parivar, everything, they belong to God. And so serves them in that spirit, then that becomes a very valuable, even ordinary normal Vyavahara. That was the yoga taught by Krishna. Arjuna had to fight anyway. So he says, do your duty in this way, then it will liberate you. Karma cannot bind you. he tells him how to be in karma, yet not to be affected by karma, or not karma may not stick to you in the form of karma phala, karmic law. This therefore, ego principle is that which separates you from the bliss of Brahman, from the infinite peace of Brahman, from the total freedom of Brahmic consciousness. And therefore, the effacement of the ego principle is the quintessential point in spiritual sadhana and spiritual life and all yoga. Yoga is effacing, erasing the ego and moving towards God. And whatever you do which effectively erases the ego, that can be part and parcel of yoga, even if it is not found in the books. And some of the things which he practiced when he was in sadhana in Swargashram, he had made some notes for himself. The sadhana for eradication of ego. It was his private, but somehow or other, years later, the notes happened to still remain somewhere in some bundle of paper. And that particular room was not being used by anyone. It was a Parsi gentleman called Dangarwala who had donated for that room. Therefore, it was called Dangarwala Kutir. And it was a later attachment to the Yoga Sadhana Kutir. Yoga Sadhana Kutir consisted only of 5 rooms. And when this Parsi gentleman, he was a dentist or something, he was a doctor, he was in the medical profession. When he wanted some room to come and stay occasionally, this last room was attached, which is nearest to the stairway, where Raghuveer Swami used to be there, Dangarwala Kutir. That was swept, kept clean, and a big bucket of water and a small bucket was always kept there, because when Gurudev came occasionally for his little inspection, checking or walk or stays in the evening, Gurudev had chronic diarrhea of a very peculiar variety. That is due to overdoing of austerity during his Swargashram sadhana days, where in winter he used to go and stand in waist deep, freezing Ganga water for several hours at a stretch. He had developed not only chronic lumbago, he also developed this peculiar trouble. Therefore, this bucket of water was kept there. He always had the key of the Dangarwala Kutir with him, and if suddenly during the walk he felt an urge, he could immediately go to that room, fill the smaller bucket with water. At that time we did not have lavatories. We did not have latrines or anything. If we had to attend to nature's call, we had to go to the jungle. And in rainy season, 2 or 3 days of jungle, then you have to take quinine or mepacrine or this. Absolutely. Because the whole place was ridden with malaria. They used to mosquitoes. You would not. Sometimes I wonder now, how I was able to do that? I wouldn't be able to do that now. If you went, they followed you in droves. And if you sat down for your latrine, you had to keep shaking your head with some leaves and branches. And then in spite of that, in 20 places you get stung and immediately skin, yes. And then afterwards, that night you started getting shivering, chillness and fever. And 50% of the population of entire Rishikesh used to be bedridden with malaria during that particular time. And that was a war time. And the army people who were disciples of Gurudev, when they came on leave, they always brought with them a supply of mepacrine. Later on, this was quinacrine and mepacrine. Then later on, that single dose malarial came much later on. And they used to narrate how people serving in Guwahati, those Assam and other places, they were every day lined up for parade. And one sergeant came with the mepacrine tablets and one sergeant came with water. They had to open their mouth, and other man put water, they had to swallow it. and then only he will move. After he has swallowed, only he will move. So otherwise the army couldn't afford to have all their soldiers in bed, you see, in hospital. And if it was given to them, they will never take it, because it is the bitterest thing in the whole world. See? And therefore, Dhanurvara Kutir was kept like that only for Gurudev's and what was I saying? Yes. Yeah, that particular room was reserved only for this particular purpose. And when I came, I was given the task of keeping the Dhanurvara Kutir clean, spick and span. And there was a lintel also. So cleaning means I will be thorough. So I wanted to dust and there was a bundle of, some bundle in a cloth, knotted up, some paper, so full of dust. I said, my God, what horrible dust. So I took the bundle down. And I said, why the heck, what is it? I opened it. And among the papers, I saw a tiny tear of pad. See, only this much, tear of pad. And you can see it from, and it contained these notes Gurudev had written for himself in his beautiful handwriting in green ink notes. And one of the pages said, from that we can also understand what the plight of sadhus could be. Go to that kshetra where you are insulted. Go to that kshetra of the arrogant young mahant and take your bhiksha. Because if you are insulted, normally you would say, I will not go there tomorrow. So his mind also must have told him. They must have spoken rudely. Then when he came back to Kutir, he must have, so from tomorrow I will not go there. Oh, he said, what is it saying this? He said, it is you. And therefore he said, go to that kshetra of the arrogant young mahant and take bhiksha there only, to that place where you are insulted. He said, it is not very nice for an aspirant to keep company which always praises you and tells you are a wonderful person. It is better sometimes to be called names. Go to that place where you are criticized, insulted and all that. It is good for you. It is good for your spiritual health. It may not be to your liking. You may not like its taste, but it is good for you. Sometimes very bad tasting medicines become very good for your malady. And the direst malady is I. The direst malady of the individual seeker. I am not talking about worldly people. I don't consider any one of you as worldly people. I consider all of you as jignasus, mumukshus, sadhaks, yogis and wanting liberation. From that point of view only I am talking about this thing. And your greatest enemy is yourself in the form of I. And your greatest problem is yourself in the form of I. And your greatest disease is yourself in the form of I. And that leads you on a very, makes you dance to its tune and makes you miserable. And you are completely dominated by it. And therefore, serve sweepers and bhangis. Serve sweepers and bhangis. Go to that kshetra where you are insulted. Kshetra of the arrogant young man. And like that, there are 4 or 5. Try to serve those who abuse you. Try to serve those who abuse you. 4 lines. You will find it in Light Fountain and terrible. When I looked at it, I was fascinated by it. And I had a very good friend in those days, Swami Narayan. He wrote Puja. And he who has given commentary on Viveka Chudamani has translated Guru Gita into, he passed away in Banaras. He always used to occupy the side room of the bhajan hall next to the Divine Life pillar. See, that was his room, and he used to be typing over these manuscripts and all that. I ran to him and told him, look what I have discovered. Do you know its existence? He looked at it, he said, I have not seen it up till now. Where did you find it? I said, it was in Dangarwala Kutira, in a very, very dust-filled clock. And so what happened, soon after that Gurudev started dictating. Here is that the first time when Gurudev spoke about himself, and the man has not, he has written Shiva Prasad, his name is not Shiva Prasad. He was a boy called Seturaman or someone, that journalist, Saint Shivananda. And then I made use of it. Later on, I said, I told Narayan Swamiji, we should not lose it. It was all falling apart, old paper. Why not make blocks out of it? He got the idea. So he sent it for block making, and blocks were made of that. Later on it was used in... So this was his formula. See? That is, to efface the sense of superiority and inferiority, and this is in India, caste-ridden society, where everywhere you go, there is always high and low. And so, Gurudev came from a very respectable Brahmin family, descendants of Appaya Dikshita. And this Abhimani is not easy to go, that I am a Brahmin. And when it is added on to by one becoming a sannyasi, who means is a person whom everyone respects, everyone shows respect. And therefore, the Brahmin Abhiman becomes still more, reinforced by sannyas Abhiman. So no wonder when he wrote the song of Karma Yoga, one of the earliest things he said, give up to Brahmin sannyas Abhiman. And give up Tyaga and Vairagya Abhiman. Give up to Brahmin. He had both that Abhiman, and so he tried to root it out. How he tried to root it out? One is, of course, go and serve the untouchables. See, Bhangi means a scavenger and sweeper. And he did it. And later on, when he came here, he carried on the same sadhana, and I believe it was the extension of this sadhana, not to encourage in any way the growing of this sannyas abhiman or tyag abhiman, who is a great tyagi, great virakta. It's an extension of this sadhana. I see that as the reason why he did not allow anyone to touch his feet. Absolutely. No one could approach him, no one could touch his feet. Standing or walking, he was always... And even when he sat and he had to keep his foot down, he did not sit like me. He always put his foot down. He put something between him and visitors. And this brings to us an incident. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa also was born in an Orthodox Brahmin family. And therefore, when he came into this Nivritti Marga and took wholeheartedly to spiritual life and sadhana, one of the things that was confronting him was the inability to shed the sense of being a Brahmin. And Gurudev was very keenly analytical, so he understood the whole problem in a very precise and highly intellectual manner. Whereas Ramakrishna Paramahamsa did not have that advantage. He was unlettered, he had not read the either Western psychology or even yogic psychology. He had no scriptural background, he did not study Patanjali Yoga Darshan or anything, and he did not know all this fineness of ahankar and all that. And the other disadvantage he had was, he came into the spiritual life when he was hardly 18 or 19 years. See, he was taken away from his village when he was 17. In some way this is parallel to Ramana Maharshi attaining illumination. But Ramakrishna already was a peculiar state, but he was not a consciously illumined being. He knew, people thought he also did not understand what his state was. And in that state, his father passed away. And when father passed away, and it became difficult for people to pull on in the home, then he thought, what is this? I thought my younger brother would grow up educated and be fit for some job, and then he will supplement my income. Now this man is not taking any interest, and he got reports that he has stopped going to school and he is not interested in anything. And so he became very serious. Maybe I will try to bring him here and make him take interest in something. So when he was 17 years of age, his younger brother, who was the future Ramakrishna, he was brought away here. And then he tried to make him interested in the Pathshala. No. He tried to take him along with him to introduce to some of the houses. He did not object to it. And the families, they liked this young boy, very, very sattvic and very well behaved. And so he did puja in some of the places, and he was assisting him in that way. It is at that time the Dakshineshwar temple was completed, and the image was already brought long before its completion. And then this very rich lady, Rani Rashmani, she wanted to do the installation of the image. And all arrangements were made on a very big scale, and the last moment one hitch arose. The Pandit said, we cannot officiate as priest in a temple that is built, and she is a low caste. We cannot do that. So, last moment, the whole ceremony was in Jeopardy. Whole ceremony was in Jeopardy. And you know, Brahmins are very akarbal. Once they take a stand, they will not they will not change their views. So she tried to find out some scriptures must have some solution for any problem. Why don't you try to do it? They said there is no such previous instance anywhere. Then it so happened that Ramakrishna's elder brother, he had some connection with the Rashmini family also. And he came to hear of this. It struck him. See, why no one thought about it? He approached the Rani and said, look here, there is one solution. Because this temple belongs to you, they are unable to officiate because she was a fourth caste. But supposing you do dana of this temple to a Brahmin, you see, offer it, give it away in charity to some Brahmin, then it becomes the Brahmin's property, then this obstacle is removed. No one thought of that solution. She said, a very good solution. I mean, it's only a symbolic thing, but it's effective to answer the problem. So, she said, very good, I am ready to do it. Because it is just like giving Godan, you see, do Sankalpa and Tarpana. She said, you have brought this solution to this problem. Why not I do dan to yourself? So you yourself please accept this as dan. So she made necessary. He said, okay. He made the Sankalpa and she made the dan of this entire temple and the deity and everything to this young man. And so the Pandits were satisfied, and then the whole thing went on without a hitch. Now you see, someone must do the worship. Again the same thing arose. Who will be the priest? When they already know that this is only a samya to remove the obstacle to the actual installation ceremony, she said, you please undertake the worship of Kali. So he had started doing the worship of Mother Kali. It is at that time that after some months of officiating as a priest to the Kali temple, he took leave and brought his younger brother. And Ramakrishna first refused to stay. He said, this is a tamasic deity. So he lived in a small room outside the temple premises, and I said, I can assist you in plucking flowers, making garlands, and washing the vessels and keeping all things ready. Elder brother. But he used to cook his own food on the banks of the Ganges. On a pot, make some khichdi with Ganges jal and rice and dal and eat it. He refused it. For several months he used to do that. And then his brother persuaded him because he wanted him to take some interest and earn some income. Persuaded him to, together with the Kali temple, on the side there is a temple of Radha Krishna. They call it Radhakanda temple. Look here, you can at least take the puja of that. He said, all right, I don't mind. So he was doing puja of Radhakanda temple, and Ram Prasad was doing the puja of Kali temple. Ram Kumar. And so, then you know what happened. He became, Ram Kumar persuaded him, all right, you don't do puja, you have got a very artistic sense, at least decorate Divine Mother's idol, at least decorate her. See? Ornamentation and dressing, and he started doing that. And ultimately he has to do it because Ram Kumar passes away. And so there is no one to do the puja. And by that time he becomes familiar with Mother. And then he plunges into sadhana. And during this sadhana period, the same, and so this Brahmin Abhiman never left him. So he later on, as he progressed in sadhana, he began to feel this is a big obstacle. That means I still consider myself as this body, born to human parents, because by that time the Paripakvata had come. And so it is given in his autobiography, there was a Harijan settlement colony outside the Dakshineshwar village. And there was a time, it appears, he used to go when they were away at work. And he had long hair at that time. He used to go and wipe the floor of their jhompdi with his hair. Not even with a cloth or jhadu. With his own hair he used to wipe, sweep and clean the floor of the Harijan jhompdi in the neighborhood. And in Gurudev's case, he had already practiced that sadhana in Sargashram, because when he was in Sargashram, he was already 35 years, 36 years, 37 years. See? 1887 and 1924. No. He came only in end of 23 or beginning of 24. And for the first 6 months or 9 months he was in Ramanagar. In that terrible flood of 1924, which washed away the old Lakshmanjala. Lakshmanjala bridge was washed away in 1924. This was built after 1924. At that time he was living in a jhompdi nearby to Ganges side, and so he has told how he had to leave it and come away when the fury of the flood brought the Ganga into the Ramanagar. This is a stage of practical wisdom I mentioned. This is of course Saint Shivananda. And one incident, he tried to take this Abhiman in various ways. One, of course, by he being the first to do pranam even to his own disciples, even to Grahasti devotees who came for his darshan, or Grahasti pilgrims who came for his darshan. And this was seriously taken objection to by all the other ashrams, orthodox sannyasis and ashrams. This one thing he did. Secondly, in South India, among castes, one of the castes that is not looked upon in favor is toddy tappers. They are called Shanar in Tamil Nadu. And they belong to the scheduled class. And for a certain time, the people who used to cook for Gurudev in his kutir, because when he left Swargashram and came here, they had no place here. So there was a broken down set of buildings which was once upon a time a dharmashala, and afterwards the owners of it lost interest in it because the road was shifted away from. In the beginning, the main road to go from Rishikesh to Lakshmanjula went via Gurudev's Kutir. That was the only road. It went via Gurudev's Kutir, went in front of post office, in front of Ramashram library, in front of this Hanuman Mandir, Darshan Mahavidyalaya, and in that ravine it went up. Went up and then went past Lakshman Kund. It went past Lakshman Kund and joined where there is a row of shops, Sarai. Yes. It went round there. That was the original road when there was no motor road. When the motor road came, that road became abandoned and everyone passed from behind it. The road went from behind where Akhilandamma is and where Ganesh Kutir is. So the Dharmashala became abandoned. And it belonged to a Vaishya family in Delhi, shopkeepers. And so Gurudev came and occupied it. And otherwise, prior to Gurudev occupying it, in rainy season, Gada, Kutte or cattle, they used to take shelter there. And so he came and occupied that first. Later on he occupied the portion demolished recently for the hospital expansion. And at that time when he was there was no cooking. One or two students of his were there. They used to go to Baba Kalikamewala, bring a bhiksha, and then Gurudev also ate it. It was alright during summer, but in winter by the time they brought it, it became cold. So they had to heat it and give it to him. And this went on for quite some time. And later on only they requested Kshetra to give rations. So dry rations were sanctioned for 6 persons including Gurudev. Every 15 days rice, dal, atta, potatoes, all these things came. When I came they had just started to cook. And dry rations came. A Brahmin used to cook for Gurudev, one of the disciples. After some time, Gurudev started working. Why I should keep a Brahmin? So for his personal attendant, he took a South Indian disciple belonging to the toilet tappers class. He became it was he who brought him his food and all that. When I came, that disciple was there. We did a parikrama of Bharatavarsha. We went by the east coast. The first call was Haridwar, then Lucknow, then Faizabad, Ayodhya, and then Varanasi, then Gaya, and then Patna and other places, then Calcutta, Voltaire, then Madras, Vijayawada, Madras. When we reached Madras, we had to leave the saloon because up till that it was broad gauge. So we had a first-class tourist saloon with about 12 or 14 beds, kitchen, storeroom, everything. Practically it was our house on wheels for 2 months. And Govindanand Swamiji was Gurudev's cook and Purushottam was the assistant. So Purushottam passed away. And then when we reached Madras, we had to leave this in Central Station. For the South Indian pilgrimage, this was not available to us because it is meter gauge. So there was already in Egmore waiting for us ready a meter gauge first class tourist saloon. And it was a tremendous job shifting all the things from Central Station to that meter gauge saloon in Egmore. And then the first call was Villipuram. There was a doctor who was Gurudev's disciple. He attended one of the earliest All India Divine Life Conference in Villipuram, Dr. Mani. Then we progressed south, then Tanjore and all that. There is a place called Mayavaram and it's called Mayuram also. Nowadays it's called Mayuram. There is a pontifical seat belonging to the non-Brahmin religious devout community there. And you know the Brahmin pontifical seats are Joshimath, Puri Jagannath, Sringeri and Dwaraka. Strict Brahmins only. And even among sannyasis, Kanchi also. They are all Brahminical seats. And even in here, you don't know, there are some Brahmin sannyasis who, because of their Brahmin, they don't want to mix, so they take danda. They are dandi sannyasis. Dandi sannyasa, only Brahmins are eligible for dandi sannyasis. And you may be surprised to know, in Baba Kali Kamliwala Kshetra, all the sannyasis take food from one kitchen, but for dandi sannyasis, there is a separate kitchen, where only other kshetra, all people like our, but in that other kitchen only Brahmins can cook. All the Brahmins, servants, everyone cook, and assistants, all Brahmins only. It is called Gaur Langar, G-O-U-R, because they are superior. And dandi sannyasis take their bhiksha only from the Gaur Langar. And so, this pontiff, 1949, he had come on a Badri Kedar Yatra. The pontiff of this pontifical seat near Mayavaram. The station was Mayavaram. And these seats are called Adhinams. Adhinams, Saiva Siddhantam, and all their disciples are those who don't wear sacred thread, non-Brahmin disciples. And they are also their own traditional scriptures, all Tamil scriptures. No Sanskrit scriptures, all Tamil scriptures. But the pontiff at that time was a very dignified, very, very venerable, not very old, but however very dignified, very venerable, and very, very sattvic sadhu. And their riches are tremendous. They have got in that Adhinam, elephant, special horse, a camel, and they are all paraphernalia. See? When he came on this pilgrimage 1949, he came to learn that Parmanji was organizing all India tour of Gurudev. He said that when Swamiji comes to South India, you must visit my Adhinam, you must be my guest for at least 1 or 2 days. So we had included the Adhinam in our. So we reached there, and each Adhinam has got its own temple also. Just as every Jagadguru Shankaracharya has got its own temple. Sringeri is called Sharadamba's temple. And so when we arrived, Gurudev was received the temple honors. Elephant garlanded him, elephant, horse, richly caparisoned and decorated horse, and then feathers and all that, and then camel and drummers, and they have got some, in Kerala there is, they have got patakas, richly silver and decorated with cloth around it, symbols of royalty, because a deity in a Hindu temple is regarded as reigning royalty. And so, he was like a royal personality, he was received a temple honors, Purna Kumbham and all that, with Talam Melam, and then he was comfortably lodged. This was in the forenoon, the train reached in the morning, and that evening, the main function was arranged in a huge hall, and all the disciples of Dharmapuram Adin, the Perivar had come there. I forget his name, it is there, it is here. And the hall was packed, a special dais was there, and table, chair and everything was put for Gurudev there. And Gurudev was very peculiar. If he is required at 5 o'clock, he will be there 5 minutes before 5, 10 minutes before 5. And the Adhinam, that Perival thought that Gurudev will, maybe, you see, all great people come a little late. I come late not because I am great, but no, because I am old. You know. And there is a story of late Latif. Late Latif. And Gurudev was already on the dais. And he had not yet come. And so the devotees were doing Sankirtan. And Gurudev had come up, he was taken to the seat by his next in command, and then we were awaiting the coming of the Perivar. And as I told you, he has a very, very straight, big turban, and his picture also is there. And so we were also on the dais, Venkateshwara was there, and Paramananji always used to be behind Gurudev. Paramananji. And Venkateshanji, Guru, he had to take down every word that fell from Gurudev. That is the outcome of Venkateshanji's work, hard work. That's a story by itself. And then the Adinam was announced. Usually someone goes ahead proclaiming, so and so is now coming, and like that, they have got. So proclaimer came and proclaiming, he came in with silver sticks, maize, they have got silver maize, you see, and fat sticks, ornamental sticks. They came and they stood at the foot of the steps where the Adinam had to come up, and so he arrived, Gurudev stood up. He was sitting in the chair, respectfully he stood up. And the pontiff started climbing the steps that led to the stage, and last step, and he stepped on the stage. God alone knows what was going on in Gurudev's mind. The moment the pontiff stepped on the stage, Gurudev fell Sashtanga Dandavat Namaskar. He has got all his disciples, and all the 1,000 disciples, the devotees are gathered. Sashtanga Dandavat Namaskars from head to tip of hands stretched beyond his head. And as I usually do, and we were simply, we were silent, we were just struck dumb, quite apart from, and all the devotees stood up, and the pontiff was simply shocked, taken aback. He stepped, he tried to step one step back, but he was on the edge of the stage. No, this should not be done, he said. And then Gurudev got up, and I took it, and he belonged to a high Brahmin family. And here was a pontiff who belonged to the lower caste. And what exactly would be the situation there when they came face to face in the eyes of the public on the stage? Perhaps two things were in Gurudev's mind. One is that he should not feel the least distinction or difference. Secondly, there should not be in my mind even the least hair's breadth vestige of my being what my birth has made me. So, cut the Gordian knot. He took the bull by the horns, as they say in the dilemma. He threw himself flat upon and it took about 5 minutes for people to grasp this, and then he also settled down, and then Gurudev went on as though nothing had happened. That Venkateshanji has described, maybe tomorrow I wanted to read it to you. This is one way in which after having reached that state of eminence, look here, in 1947 we observed the Diamond Jubilee of Gurudev, Shashtavarthi Gurudev, and we had invited the Maharaja Sahib of Teri. It was so he came, and he was received with band and all that. He was brought up, and then Gurudev, he met him just before this, in the trees just here, and Maharaja Sahib wanted to remove his shoes. He wanted to remove his shoes. But he couldn't do it because it was tied. And so immediately some lieutenant of his and someone, his aide-de-camp, he removed his shoes and immediately stepped on bare feet and touched Gurudev's feet. And Gurudev touched his feet. So I was saying, a person to whom a ruling prince touched and he in front of, it is not as though in his private, in front of all the other person's disciples as well as in front of his own disciples. And I will close by narrating a very small incident. I was there. It was interesting. As I told you, in those days, post office was his main office. And every year, one ICS officer used to visit this place. He was an Indian ICS officer of UP. And he was called Sri Pannalal ICS. His son-in-law was also, he became a conservator of forests. And he was a great mass disciple, mass ardent devotee and disciple. And Pannalal was Swami Tapon's devotee and disciple. And he used to come here, and in winter he came, and always the forest rest house was reserved for him. And at that time, Tapon Swami also used to come in winter and stay in Brahmananda Ashram. And whenever he came, without fail, Pannalal used to come when Swamiji's darshan time was there, in the evening. And Swamiji gave great regard to him and gave him a chair and all that. ICS officer in those days means British Raj, you can imagine. And once after the interview was over, Swamiji was getting up to go and Pannalal also got up to go. He stepped out. What happened? When coming inside the office, naturally he leaves the shoes outside. And that day, his peon was somewhere away. When he stepped out, his peon had gone somewhere. Otherwise, without daftari, that badge peon, they will never stir out. He was somewhere. And he was nonplussed. Pannalal was nonplussed. Because the peon was in the habit of putting his shoes. No, he had taken off his shoes, he was putting his shoes also. So he came with his walking stick, with stockinged feet, stepped out of the office and came to the veranda. And this man is not there. He was looking this way. Gurudev immediately sized up the situation. He bent and took his shoes and put it. You must have seen 5 years Pannalal at the time. I was by me. These are the living lessons of absolute ego lessons. Absolute ego. Here is an ICS officer coming to have darshan, his satsang, and get some wisdom from him. And all that he fulfills in his own maryada. And when he comes up, he is servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Lord's feet. See? And he, and that is narrated. I don't know whether I have narrated it in this Light Fountain or Venkateswami is narrated somewhere. And this was something seen by your own eyes. This is the state of a being who has transcended the self and become established in Brahman, and in his own way, Chitram Vatataror Mole, Vriddha Shishya, Yuva Guru, Gurostu, Mauna Vyakhyanam, Shishyastu Chinna Samshaya. And in certain ways, Gurudev was no different from Dakshinamurti. He did not say, but what he did was itself more than a total sermon or a big lecture or a big Upadesha, Jnana Upadesha. Hari Om. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritangamaya. Om Purnamabhat Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.